Alright guys, hello and back again. I think it's time to speak about something really important that I've learned over the time and I've perceived as well throughout life, especially about myself, and I thought it could really help others as well, maybe through the same situation as it does and how it has actually changed my life. Everybody's probably wondering why I've been actually using a mirror. And I wanted to actually speak today about the mirror effect. That's at least how I call it. And it's something that truly has helped me through life and creating change. So the topic of today will be how to be the one who starts changing. So it's so difficult sometimes knowing exactly where to start and knowing exactly what to change about oneself. And it was the same for me because there were certain things that I used to do and I had certain habits in life. I kept on saying I need to change my habit, but how do I make that change? And it took me quite some time to really reflect on myself, to really understand myself. But how did I end up being even able to understand myself? Was actually through the mirror effect. Because if we think about the mirror in general, right? Most of us ladies especially, we see ourselves daily in the mirror, and once we get ready, we make sure that we look great, ready to get out, or even just going on a day-to-day to work, right? So for me, I think it all started with understanding more and more about how it really works, because the reality is that once you look into the mirror and you see something about yourself, maybe your lipstick is smudged or went towards the side. That could be one of the reasons. But what you usually do in general is that you take the time to remove it, to make sure it looks nice, so there isn't anything on the face that shouldn't be there, right? And that's something I really realized, that the only way how I really started understanding myself and being able to change myself was actually by looking myself in the mirror. Of course, not really looking myself in the mirror. I mean, that's something I do anyway. But seeing people as mirrors actually in my life. People around me who are basically showing something about myself that I even didn't realize because I wasn't really self-aware or really aware or took the time to even think about certain things. And the first reason of truly needing or having that urge to change is there's certain, I guess I would call it maybe symptoms. If you are in a situation when you need to fix something, you need to understand what the issue is, right? And it really helped me seeing people as my mirrors, because the people that I was spending time around with were really similar to me in many ways. Not exactly the same things, but something about them sometimes made me feel upset, and I was this person hasn't done this and that. For instance, one person's not maybe as tidy as I am, not as organized as I am, and it would bother me at this point. But I didn't even realize when I look back that I was the one who wasn't at that time really organized, who didn't have my life together. So it truly changed it when I started seeing it differently. Looking myself in the mirror, if I had a day that I didn't even know how I felt and I didn't know what was going on, the first thing that I would do, or I started doing, which really helped me, I would go to work and I would sit down and ask my colleague that's the one that I spent most time with, and I would ask her, how are you feeling today? And she kept on telling me how she was truly feeling. And I just realized that was the answer that I was looking for, that I didn't know about myself, because I couldn't just diagnose it for myself. So I started reflecting and I was oh, this is something that I'm going through right now. One of the reasons was she said once, I'm feeling stressed when it comes to work, and I keep on thinking about work, even at night, I can't even sleep. And it was literally the same thing for me. But then for me, it made me realize, all right, I can look at myself in the mirror, leave that thing that bothers me or the way I feel, or I make a change. So it was all up to me to make that change and understand myself even deeper. So I started trying to understand and asking questions. It's like I was asking my mirror about myself to see myself more clearly in general. And the reality has really shown that as well, the impact it really had at the end towards me by actually making that change, by understanding, because it's so easy sometimes to write everything down, how I feel and what is going on. But people around us, we are here for each other, to learn from each other and to help each other. We can always see something in somebody else about ourselves. Once we get upset, once we feel furious, it's just asking the question to myself, what is it about that situation that makes me upset, or makes me feel a certain way, or makes me start having arguments about it? Because the reality is, once I start changing, people around me change. So the reality is to be actually the person who changes, because by changing you create change within others. In time, you actually do. And that's so important to really understand, is how do I start first understanding myself? By actually looking at myself, by seeing people around me, by saying, okay, do I want that to continue? Because I had to realize by going back and understanding myself more that there are certain situations that kept on happening again and again, especially when you struggle with anxiety. You always get the opportunity to make that change, and there's a situation, it will keep on coming up. There are certain things that caused me to be more anxious, especially when I had to speak up about myself to other people. The way I started feeling is my anxiety would go right up to the top. And I felt no, I can't be saying anything, and I kept it within. Of course, it made it worse. There's one way of avoiding it or actually making that change. But the change starts only from understanding oneself. If you don't understand yourself, then it's actually very hard to make that change. Because usually, even when it comes to work, you will actually make a change once you understand the situation. What is not going well? What has been happening? What can I try? Of course, there's a trial and error, because there's certain things that works for a person and something it doesn't. But the reality is, when I look at someone, I get upset about somebody else and try to change them, I had to realize that I was trying it so hard. I was trying so hard to change people around me, but it wasn't possible, because I knew that I can't change somebody else, but I can be the one who changes first to create change within others. And that's actually what we want to do. It's being the better version of myself. But how do I start? Is thinking about it. And what I like to do is even when it comes to just sitting here in front of the video and creating a video, is make me realize what is the first step I want to do towards that. How about trying to go to work, or go to uni, or go to your friend, have a conversation, and if you don't know how you're feeling or what's going on today, just ask them how they're feeling. Of course, not everybody will give you the answer, because not everybody is used to actually say out loud how they feel. But once they do, you can actually start reflecting on yourself, taking the time to say oh, how can I see myself within it? What is a change that I want to make? What is something that has been bothering me for such a long time that I need to make a change? So people around you are that example of being able to see ourselves clearly, to make that one change. It's one small step at a time, but of course I have days when I forget, sometimes looking myself in the mirror. But the reality is I do it every morning, and even just putting that into action, saying how can I understand myself a little bit better? How can I do better? It's putting action towards that change by just asking yourself the question, understanding the situation I'm in, understanding why I feel that way, understanding why has this been happening. Because certain things get triggered as well from the past or connect to the past. But understanding it, you yourself will be able to find the solution actually. It's not people having to give you advice and tell you do this and then it changes. No, you're different than everybody else is. You're special in your own way. So you will actually eventually be understanding yourself, know the answer for yourself, and how to make that exact change. Of course, it's so important to be patient, something that I've been actually struggling a lot with, something that I'm working on, being actually nice to myself and giving myself that time to get there. But yeah, so I hope really that was some really great advice for those actually around who feel the same way and feel like I don't know how to start with change. Like I literally don't know how to get started. And it just starts like with a small step by asking a few questions to make that small change and go towards that. Because we are there to help each other to evolve, to help each other, to support each other in which way we actually can. And that's what we're made for, actually. It's so important to have that space and being able to do that. And especially for me, somebody who struggled a lot with anxiety and depression, it came all from understanding myself and taking that time. And the first step is look yourself in the mirror and see, what can I see about myself? What can I change? Is it something about me that makes me feel a certain way towards people, towards situation, like towards avoidance? So that's how to actually get started. Guys, let me know how you found the video, if it was helpful. Share it actually in the comments below, and how has it actually been trying it out yourself, and what was you made aware of about yourself and something that you've learned and you're trying to put into action. Alright guys, see you next time.